Hey, it's Steve Barcelo again, back at the museum. Going back through a bunch of files and stuff I printed out. Finally got around to watching the interview David Grusch and Joe Rogan on the Rogan Experience. It was interesting. It was almost 3 hours long. It was quite a bit to watch. You see, I'm putting together a bunch of files here. I'm using this new microphone. It's not new, but I don't get to use it much unless I'm in the museum. Hopefully it's sounding okay. But a bunch of stuff. One of the things that's come back up recently that people haven't talked about in a while, it's like the Bob Lazar thing coming back up after Grusch has come through and discussed things. It's so many things come back that are similar. Previous whistleblowers that were out there talking about, reverse engineering. This term they use, stovepiping, basically compartmentalizing everyone that's doing the research, so nobody knows what the next person's doing. Just a way to try to keep things secret. Apparently, that's something they started or did with the Manhattan Project, and it works so well they've moved it into the world of ufology. I want to talk a little bit about Grusch and stuff that he talked about. I just watched it briefly last night. I was busy doing other things. I want to watch the whole interview again. Towards the end, they get talking about kind of off the subject of UFOs, and then at the very end, they kind of go back onto it. It's kind of like more of a bonding experience for the two gentlemen, just discussing stuff in general. But their views on the world kind of thing. Another person that's come up lately, Philip J. Corso. And I want to talk about him for a little bit. Now, one of the interesting things about Philip J. Corso is he was a high-ranking official in the military. He had the ear of the president. He wrote the book The Day After Roswell. Now, a lot of the stuff he talks about on the UFO end, he got in front of Congress and talked about the mistreatment of soldiers in Korea, them being tortured and stuff. I adjusted the volume, so hopefully this works. He died 1998, July 16th at 83 in Florida. He was a lieutenant colonel. I guess that was his highest rank at one point. And apparently colonels back then pulled a lot more weight than they seem to these days, because if you look in history, there's a lot of people they're treated more like generals, it seems. Now, the interesting thing about him is, I remember this coming out a while ago. Now, it's just like going back to the Bob Lazar stuff. You kind of, you're going back in memory to these interviews that came out, and I remember, thinking the tinfoil hat, I've reversed engineered, spacecraft and all this other stuff, the Bob Lazar part. But his is unique because he's another one that was kind of like Grusch. He was up there. He was in there. He has connections. There's a whole paper trail to prove that what he says he was and did, he was. It's like they couldn't eliminate his trail like they do on everybody else. So he had a very stellar military career. But the one thing that he came out with says that he got put in charge of basically reverse engineering the stuff that came out of Roswell. So he claims that the parts that he was given to research and take care of, that he sent them out to places like Bell Lab and colleges, just different companies, different places to work on things. Now, things like there was material found there in the alien bodies. They felt it was almost stitched around them, almost like a cocoon is the way some people have mentioned it, which sounds very strange. But like basically Kevlar, something to protect the bodies. And he claims that by giving this to companies, and I don't remember which company got what, and I don't know if that really matters. I don't know if I heard even sometimes the story he would tell kind of shifted gears, so you got to take everything with a grain of salt. And but basically, eventually Kevlar did come out. Seems like after Roswell, there was a huge jump. Now, was it because of Roswell? I don't know. Everything's kind of skeptical. But so you have Kevlar that supposedly came out of that because of him. Fiber optics, a huge one. He says there was no wiring in the craft. It was just these tubes that it could bend around corner. Now, using light for communication goes back to, I think it was the invention of the telephone they could use. But the problem is, if you can talk through using a beam of light, how do you talk around the corner? Well, fiber optics solves that problem. You can be bent. Now, fiber optics was really, I worked at Brookhaven National Lab for quite a while. And I worked with a friend of mine there who was a glass blower, Barry Laffer. He was a character. But he worked at upstate New York and then Corning, worked for Corning. And I believe Corning, going by the stories he told me, were the ones that actually came up with the functioning, working fiber optics. So I don't see him in any of the stuff that he's talking about. This is Wikipedia, so it's kind of very basic, doesn't really go into too much. So I'm kind of limited on what I can give you. I'm trying to remember and go through a couple other documentaries I've seen. Philip Corso has kind of really been kind of blown off a lot. And that's why he's come back up now with all this new evidence coming up. People are kind of going like, we need to take another look at him, see if the stuff he was talking about, even though it sounded so far-fetched, maybe it's not that far-fetched. But anyway, so that was another thing. Fiber optics, he claims that came out of the crash at Roswell. Another thing was night vision. There were windows on the craft. If you look through, even at night, it looked like daytime out there. And one of the bodies had something over a lens that could actually give them capability of night vision. And people debate that too, say, oh no, it was done by this person and that person. So just a lot of things. The integrated circuit. That's another thing they claim that they found, a damaged circuit or circuitry on the craft. And this is before we had anything that were like, the circuits we're used to in cell phones, smartphones, and computers. And so this is just crazy stuff. Now, how much of this is accurate? How much came through? I believe the time, he published a book in 1997. So I believe he served in the service from 1942 to 1963. But I believe it was actually, I got out of the service for a little while, and I don't see that in here. He talks about the Korean War, and they talk about the hearing here, but I'm not seeing the date for when he came out and did the whistleblowing, which is even stranger. So I don't know the exact date he came out and started claiming. I'm going to say about the time he wrote the book. And so basically somewhere between that is where he had that job where he was giving things out to major corporations and having them reverse engineer things. And that's where he claims a lot of this technology came from. I'm going to try to look more up on this. I'm going to do a part 2, kind of more just on him, because it's pretty interesting stuff. It's just hard to find anything on him. It really is. Even just looking up images, and I'm going to place some images in here. There's not a heck of a lot up there of him. There's some, military shots. There's a couple of standard ones that are just used over and over again. Some of the documentaries I went through, like whole History Channel stuff, they just had their graphic artists make up stuff because there was nothing to really use that was actually from. I mean, obviously, I'm not expecting to see the items from the crash site of Roswell. That'd be dynamite. But I mean, there's just not much out there on this, so it's kind of makes it even all the more interesting. Like maybe some of his stuff was expunged and disappeared. Now, Roswell was an incident that happened in obviously 1947, and that was one of the big ones. That was a huge UFO thing. That's kind of the one that kind of really shook things up. Now, there's been evidence and things that happened before. Now, even going by stuff that Grusch now was able to come out and say, because other people have talked about it, and some of the stuff, a lot of stuff he has to be cleared for. And but basically, the Aurora, Texas one's another one. That was 1897, and that was an airship, as they claimed it, that hit a windmill, crashed, and there was a dead alien there that they gave a Christian burial to, and that's supposedly still buried in the Aurora Cemetery. This gravestone was stolen, so that's missing. So the people, only a handful of people actually know where the creature's actually buried. Now, going back to the Grusch interview, some of the very interesting things I saw on this now, and I got to play it again. And he was talking about an older UFO crash that goes all the way back to 1933. In Magenta, I think is the proper name, Italy. And this goes back to basically the obviously Italian army who were cozying up with the Germans at that point, and the Vatican, of course. The Vatican plays a major role in this. So apparently this was a crash that had no bodies as far as they know. He's not aware of them anyway. So if the bodies were removed, or maybe they survived the crash and wandered off and died somewhere else or something, who knows. But basically it's the craft that's roughly, I believe I have it written down, I think it was 20 by some feet wide, Not huge, so it's another one, maybe it was more of a drone sort of thing, since it's not super big, although these creatures that come out of these aliens are tiny, but still that seems kind of tight. And apparently it was involved possibly either farmers or the police found the crash site in the field. Wasn't 100% on there. But just some nutty stuff. Another thing too, he talks about in this interview, which I'm kind of happy he came out with, the same story that we hear over and over again about UFO people that come forward, whistleblowers, or someone, supposedly people have been pushed to their deaths, and lots of threats. Even the Roswell story had people talking, coming up to citizens and just basically saying the desert's a big place, to find your bones out there. Just total threats. We will kill you attitude. It's kind of the Men in Black thing that comes around. Well, he comes forward saying they've done it to him and his wife a couple of times. Sorry, I took a break there. I just wanted to kill the heater because that would be that hum in the background that would drive us all nuts. I've got enough things in the office here that make noises. Let me know if you like this new, it's not a new microphone. It's a microphone I've had for a while. I just don't get a chance to use it much. But it's a proper mic for the desk here. It's kind of big and bulky. You can see it in the shot. But using the shotgun mic off the camera is just kind of, I find it a little bit annoying. All right, I just went back and grabbed some of the stuff. Kind of backstepping here. So the Italy craft, he said, was roughly 10 by 20 is what he remembers. No bodies found. And he believes the U.S. government got it, I guess, after the war, somewhere between 1944 and 1945. And he seemed to hint that he knows where it might be, that craft might be hidden or held in the U.S. So, everyone's been talking about multiple crafts, and that goes back to, person after person has come out as whistleblowers. And everything seems to stem back to, a lot of it, to Roswell. This is interesting, though, that he came back with this one. So now we have something that goes back to 1933. Of course, now we still have the Aurora one, which was 1897. But it sounds like this one apparently plays more of a vital role just because the Vatican was involved, and the U.S., and Italy, and even apparently the Italians called the Germans over and said, "Is this one of your wonder weapons?" And they basically said, "No, but we'd like to look at it," So, and apparently America and Russia, and this is something that even Bob Lazar discussed, worked at Area 51, and basically they shared knowledge with the Russians for a while there. And I don't know if they still are. I kind of doubt it, but it seems odd. There's been this sharing of technology along the way. And Grusch mentions that too. He talks about that whole thing. Now, getting back to the whole thing about the threats. Now, the threats is something that's been going on for ages. Like I said, people, even citizens being threatened. And Grusch gets into this and discusses how they purposely came to him multiple times to let him know that they can reach out and touch him and his wife. And that's pretty screwed up. But unfortunately, this seems to be the norm. And this is, like I'm saying, it's kind of like that Men in Black thing, the threat that comes out, these men in suits in the black limousines or SUVs as it is now. And they'll come out and basically kind of put you in your place, and you can't talk, and something will happen. And supposedly, going by so many stories, people have disappeared. I mean, even going by the Kecksburg story, there was a reporter from the radio station who was basically threatened, and he changed the whole story around and downplayed it, and then he was killed by a hit and run. I mean, it's just, there's always these things now. Is it coincidence? Did someone silence this person? I mean, A lot of people go into mass depression after being put in this position. They think this is the story of their career, or the thing they're gonna move up in rank or whatever. Or in other cases, with Grusch and Lou, I mean they've stopped, walked away from their careers because they feel that this has to be released to the public. The public has the right to know. But this was crazy. He discussed this. Now Bob Lazar talked about that too. Threats. I mean, pointing guns at him. They talk about how he would go somewhere. He was actually carrying an Uzi at one point for his own protection, and he would actually go like into a store or a gym to work out or something, or a doctor visit, and then come out and all the windows in his car were open, glove box open, gun laying on the seat, just to kind of screw with his head and say like, see, we can do what we want. And that's kind of keeps on. It's like they don't change the way they do things. I mean, from the threats to trying to destroy someone's credibility. They did that with Bob Lazar. They did that with Grusch. They're trying to do it with Grusch, talk about mental health issues. And it's just, they don't seem to give up. And the same thing with the hiding the facts, muddying the waters. I mean, it always goes back to the, swamp gas and dummies dumped from space. It's the same old stuff all the time, weather balloons, and it's just crazy. But and then they say now the new one they're coming out with is this probably high-tech stuff by DARPA and things like that. And some of the stuff could be. We don't know what's out there. But I mean, some of these things have been seen way before the Wright brothers flew. I mean, so what the hell? I mean, DARPA wasn't around back then. We hadn't even gotten off the ground really, and here we've got things zipping around that people are seeing. And then you go back in time, you've got all kinds of crazy stuff where people are looking at these things as gods. Then they're praying to them. We got stone carvings. You get into the whole ancient alien theme. It's just nuts. I mean, it's so much to try to wrap your head around and get into. And I'm very much into this, but I'm trying to put it together. And things are just slowly but surely keep on coming out. And I mean, it's week by week. And now we're waiting to see what's going on with Congress. Now we have some congressmen that are trying to squash the Schumer amendment. And there's a couple of different amendments out there. The Schumer one, apparently the larger one. It's more encompassing, although some people are claiming it's poorly written, but that's, typical one side against the other thing. But the bottom line, it's transparency. This stuff needs to get out. Now, common sense tells you don't want to give up anything that could be a threat to America, anything that could be possibly a weapon. And that's unfortunate. That's the way everything goes. Everything. How can we weaponize this? And but so you don't want to give that up. You're not trying to help the other side hurt us or anyone else. But I mean, there's technology out there that I think that's the big part. It's I think a lot of it's just personalities. I have a secret I'm going to keep. Knowledge is power, and people are just keeping this close to the chest. And I have the right to know and you don't. And that's where a lot of even Grusch talks about, like, just because you have some stars on your shoulder, what makes you a better human than me that you have this secret and stuff. And I'm kind of happy this attitude's kind of coming out, and we could find out what's going on with all this stuff. It's just amazing. I'm going to keep doing series on the UFO. I mean, I'm still doing everything else. We just got back from Crypticon and went up to Lexington, Kentucky, and did Pope Lick, the Goatman story. But after that, I did go down to Wrightsville Beach and did a little UFO thing, and I got this weird little squiggle thing there, which is funny. Someone actually posted on my one of my YouTube things, and he totally looking at something totally different. It's not seeing the thing that's circled and arrows are pointing to, which is kind of funny. But it's a weird subject when people are just uncomfortable with it. But I'm going to still do everything else and keep on moving around and doing as much as I can. But the UFO stuff is just so huge right now. And it's just, every time I turn around, there's another news report. Someone else is talking. Apparently there's a boatload of people that want to come forward and talk and discuss what's going on with these sightings, more whistleblowers, people that have boots on the ground that have actually worked with some of these craft and actually dealt with these biologics, these bodies. So I think you're going to see a lot more come out of this place. I mean, just go. I know I'm kind of regressing and talking about some of the things I've talked about in other videos too. But look at the whole thing with the Chinese spy balloon. We saw video of the balloon flying over some states there. People upset and complaining. So of course they track it, and I believe what I'm hearing from people I know in the know, they've been tracking these things for ages and sending disinformation to them. But so they wait till this thing gets up and over the ocean right off South Carolina, just south from where I was, where it was sightings were when I was down at the shore this past week. And they shoot it down. I mean, they have video of it being shot down. They have video and photos of it being recovered, and photos of it being looked at in the FBI warehouse. And then you have the other three Tic Tac shaped things that we're seeing. Three of them now within a short period. I think it was a couple of weeks up over Alaska and Canada. And they were shot down. Crickets. Nothing. Matter of fact, you get all kinds of misinformation came out there, talking about how it was just a small balloon. That's all it was.
And we are joined now by the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Senator, thank you for coming in this morning. I want to start with this question over the Chinese spy planes and other aerial objects. 3 incidents in a week.
The bottom line is, first, until a few months ago, we didn't know of these balloons. Our intelligence and our military did not know. At least 3 times.
It's wild that we didn't know, isn't it?
It is wild that we didn't know, absolutely, and I'll get to that in a minute. Now they are learning a lot more, and the military and the intelligence are focused like a laser on first gathering and accumulating the information, then coming up with a comprehensive analysis of what went on before, what's going on now, and what could go on in the future. You can be sure that if any American interests or people are at risk, they'll take appropriate action. Until they get that comprehensive analysis, however, we have to look at each balloon individually.
Were these
and see
balloons
what
Friday
this
and
does.
Saturday night?
They believe they were, yes, but much smaller than the first one. Both of those, one over Canada, one over Alaska, were at 40,000 feet. Immediately, it was determined that that's a danger to commercial aircraft, which also fly at 40,000 feet. And so the second one, in cooperation with the Canadians, the first one with the Americans, took it down. And that's appropriate.
And then generals come out saying, no, it wasn't a small balloon, and we're not ruling out extraterrestrials. So it's the same old song. It's just, they call it the Potomac two-step. Everyone just kind of like dancing around everything. And, little by little, things are coming out, but it's so hard to keep track of. And I give these guys that have been doing this for years all the credit in the world, because, I worked worked for the New York Daily News, and, doing journalism. And, I started as a photojournalist, videographer, and then ended up just doing a little bit of everything. I mean, it's just doing the paper trail there, going from story to story to job, and just trying to keep track. And even here, just trying to run the museum and just keep track of this. I mean, I'm just constantly, my toner ran out. I'm printing so much stuff, so now I got to go buy toner for the laser printers. Now I'm printing things off the photo printer just to keep track. I'm an old guy. I like paper. I like to highlight. I use highlighters and pens. I'm old school. And but it's just amazing how much stuff's out there. And every time something else comes out, like, all talking about, Philip Corso now. I mean, this guy, I haven't thought of him in ages, and actually it was weaponized. They talked about it, and I said, holy shit, they're right. I mean, I really should go back and look at that stuff too. And it's just, it's just so much information that we have to go through. But anyway, I'm going to keep on doing this stuff, keep on checking things out. I'm going to play back the interview. So if you get a chance, go to Joe Rogan Experience and see the Grusch interview. That's a good one. Of course, subscribe, share, support. Do that same thing for us. Of course, we need it too, more so than probably everyone else. And of course, the Weaponized Project too. You got to go do their show. They do a good job. It's amazing how much stuff's going on here, and I'm reaching out to a couple of people. I'm going to let you know what's going on. I have some things in the works. I'm hoping everything comes up. There'll be some interesting things for you folks. I'm kind of keeping it close to the chest, and we'll be talking more about this. Please put your comments below. Let us know if you have things you'd like to see us do. We're going to start doing a little more of a podcast sort of thing. I'm going to have some other people come in, and if I have to do things via Zoom, just cover more subjects. And I want to keep things going here. I apologize. I've been really slack for a while on the videos due to some personal issues I'm going through, and I'm trying to bounce back and get that covered. But thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I'll be talking to you guys soon. Like I said, we got a lot more stuff coming up. Talk to you.